All right, so we had some opt-outs today. Many scrub players, but there were some big names as far as I'm concerned. So we might as well begin with your Patriots because they're your team. You covered them. So I want to hear your thoughts on the many Patriots opt-outs. We'll talk about the scrubs like Brandon Bolden. Like, who cares about him? Like, actually, that's probably a good thing because fantasy owners won't have to worry about him stealing touchdowns anymore. But we had Marcus Cannon, who was not really surprised. I mean, he's a cancer survivor and he's 335 pounds, so you can understand that one. Dante Hightower opted out. That was a very curious one. And Patrick Chung might just be it for his career probably because he's going to be in his mid-30s and they drafted a safety to replace him. So that's probably it for his career. What do you think about these opt-outs? Like, how does this affect the Patriots' chances when this gets to the playoffs? And I guess overall.
I think the two big ones you have to focus on are Marcus Cannon and Dante Hightower because they're huge difference makers for the team. Cannon, it obviously makes sense that he would opt out being a cancer survivor like you mentioned. So I totally understand why he's doing it. But the Patriots at this point do not have a ton of offensive tackle talent. They have Yadni Kajust on the team, who was a third-round pick in 2019, but he didn't play at all last year because he was hurt. And they have Corey Cunningham, who they got in a trade with the Cardinals. And that's pretty much it. Jermaine Illuminor is there, too, but he's more of an interior player. They do not have a replacement for Cannon on this roster. And they're going to have to get creative with what they're doing because Dante Scarnecchia is not there anymore. So he can't just pull some random guy in off the street like Marshall Newhouse last year and get him to play, at a serviceable level. Newhouse wasn't great, but considering he had just signed, he did okay enough. So I'm worried about that one. As Dante Hightower, so both he and Patrick Chung on Twitter a few weeks ago had kind of expressed that, if the league's going to try to play, but they give the players an opt-out, they're going to take the opt-out because they're on the older side and they have like really young kids. I think Dante Hightower has like a 2-week-old baby, so that's why he's opting out. But losing Hightower is going to hurt this team a lot because they do not have many good linebackers. They lost Jamie Collins, Kyle Van Noy. Juwan Bentley has potential. But aside from him, that linebacking core is going to be barren without Hightower. And I just don't know how they're going to make up for that loss. On the bright side for the Patriots, they now have a lot of cap space. So, they could go out and try to sign a difference maker. Maybe they go up to Jadeveon Clowney and say like, hey, you're still looking for a team. You want to play for a winner? Come play for us 1 year. We'll give you, $12, $15 million or some heavily incentive-based contract to do it. So maybe something like that will happen. But if not, the Patriots have lost a lot of depth and two key starters on each side, one on each side of the ball. So I think this hurts their chances of winning the AFC East. I don't think it does anything to take them out of the playoff race, though. I still think they'll be in the wild card hunt for sure.
Maybe we'll see. It's pretty barren linebacking core, as you said. Like Hightower's gone. That means Jamie Collins is gone too, and Kyle Van Noy. They lost the top linebackers from last year, so it's going to be very difficult for them to recover. I don't get the young kid thing because, kids can't get it. So I really don't understand why they're doing this. It seems like. It seems like they're maybe misinformed or something, but I guess it's their decision. They can do whatever they want. But I think it's really going to hurt the team. Patrick Chung, like I said, I think that might be it for his career because they drafted Kyle Duggar in the second round, and he's probably just going to take a spot. So I don't think that's a big deal. The Marcus Cannon thing is huge, I think, as well. I mean, you mentioned Dante Scarnecchia. I was going to bring him up. The offensive line will be worse without him for sure. And the offensive line is one of the main strengths of this team. Their defense, obviously, and now you can question that with the linebacking core. But also their offensive line was awesome. And now Scarnecchia's gone and Cannon's gone. And like you said, they don't have a logical replacement for Cannon. Maybe this is the team that signs Corey Glenn. Kind of had to bring him up there. So I think that could work out. But it's still a big loss, though. And, with Cam Newton being injury prone, I think that might lead to him getting injured. So I'm a little more bearish on them. I still think they can make the playoffs. They've obviously Bill Belichick. And if Cam Newton's completely healthy, I think they could certainly get there. It's just going to be a lot more difficult without these guys. And just the depth took a big hit overall. So I don't. It's not looking good for them right now.
Yeah, definitely. Unless, this is all orchestrated by Bill Belichick and it's some big mastermind plan that he's having everyone opt out. Because I've seen all that speculation. That is not true. Bill Belichick doesn't want to lose this year to get Trevor Lawrence. Let's stop that in its tracks now. There's no way he's telling these veterans, don't play this year. We want Trevor Lawrence. And just one other alternative to the Cannon idea. I love the Cordy Glenn idea because I think he'd be a great mentor to Isaiah Wynn. Same college, same concerns coming to the NFL about if they could stay outside, but they're both huge. So Glenn could fit in at right tackle. Another option would be kicking Joe Tooney from left guard, either out to left tackle or right tackle, depending on where you want to play Isaiah Wynn, and then having one of their young draft picks like Mike Onwenu or Justin Herron challenge a guy like Jermaine Illuminor for the left guard spot. So they have some options there, but it's obviously not as good as Cannon. So we'll see what they do, but it's definitely not a great day for the Patriots in terms of how much depth they've lost.
Yeah, for sure. I like that idea. I would like it a lot more if Scarnecchia were there. Like, I feel like he could make that transition a lot better for Tooney. I question if it could happen with Scarnecchia gone. So, but I do like that idea. And some people are saying, like, as comment Patriots going 12-4. I'd be pretty surprised. I think that, the conspiracy theory about Belichick trying to get Trevor Lawrence, it would make a lot more sense if they didn't get Cam Newton. So, like, why would they sign Cam Newton and then try to do it? I just don't see it happening. I don't see him being worse than the Jaguars or the Bears, for that matter. So I think those two teams have the inside track for Trevor Lawrence. Speaking of the Bears, Eddie Goldman opted out. Their big nose tackle. They've been a lot worse against the run when he's been out of the lineup. So what do you think this does for the Bears?
I think this has pretty minimal impact on them. They were already bad, like just on paper, not a very good looking team. They have some talented players, but on offense, they can't move the ball because they don't have a quarterback. And, on defense, they're overrated because, they have Khalil Mack and, Akeem Hicks was coming back, but they have Robert Quinn in not a great scheme fit. And they don't really have a second cornerback or a proven second cornerback, that is, aging linebacker and Danny Trevathan. So there were some concerns with them going in. Losing Goldman's going to make them a lot worse against the run. So I think this just hurts them a lot more overall. They don't have anyone who's capable of replacing Goldman. I think their backup nose tackle, I think, is John Jenkins, who has bounced around the league a bunch. So we'll see what ends up happening there, but I think that this just makes their defense worse. I think teams will beat them with the run, especially when they play like the Vikings and the Packers, who have good rushing attacks. So I think this just it's just further dampens my perspective on the Bears. I just don't think that they're going to be good this year.
Yeah, don't forget about the Lions too, because they drafted DeAndre Swift, so it's going to be pretty tough for the Bears to stop the run. And I think ultimately this is a good thing because, as we talked about before, their offensive line is a disaster with Kyle Long gone and their two tackles aging. Nick Foles, someone brought him up saying he's a beast, and I mean he was a beast in the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship, but I really don't see him carrying this team. Like, he and Allen Robinson can't really carry this team by themselves. I think it's going to be pretty tough. Their defense is not going to be as good with Goldman gone. They also lost Nick Kwiatkowski, their linebacker, and they never replaced Bryce Callahan, their slot corner from 2018. So their defense is going to be worse. And I think the Bears are going to go 3-13, 4-12 this year. So they could be in position for Trevor Lawrence. I think the Jaguars have the inside track for Lawrence right now. But I guess you never know with Minshew. Maybe Minshew can get some miracle wins like he did last year, and maybe the Bears end up getting Trevor Lawrence. Although, given the Bears' track record with quarterbacks, they'll probably find a way to screw it up somehow. Staying in the division, actually, like all the other opt-outs were in this division, oddly enough. The Vikings lost their nose tackle, Michael Pierce, who is definitely a better player than Eddie Goldman, I think. They signed him to a 3-year, $27 million contract this offseason, and so they're not going to get him in his age 27, I believe, season. So it's a year of his prime that's going to be gone from this contract. So, the Vikings have to feel pretty bad about that, but he is a big player. He's almost 350 pounds. So you can sort of understand this one. So what do you think about this opt-out for the Vikings?
Yeah, I think in terms of Pierce, I think he was one of the very few high-risk opt-outs. I think he has some sort of respiratory issue from what I understand, or something. I don't know if it's asthma or something, but there's some reason he chose to do that. But Pierce, I think the Vikings are going to miss him a lot. They do have some talent on the defensive line. I like what they have. They have some good rotational players, but Pierce was supposed to replace Linval Joseph, really become that run-stuffing presence, add a little more in the pass rush. And now they won't have him this year. And, this is really a win-now year for the Vikings. They have Kirk Cousins on that big money deal, and that's just going to keep hamstringing them moving forward. They're going to have to part with high-cost players or players that are due bigger contracts in the near future. So every year they lose more players, the harder it's going to be for them to win with Cousins at the helm. So I think losing Pierce hurts their defense a lot. I still think they'll be competitive in the North because the North isn't a very good division overall. And they did a really good job of adding a lot of talented quality players in the draft. Like they had 15 picks and all of them got positive grades for me, I think. So I have faith that they'll stay afloat, but I think they're definitely going to be worse off against the run. So losing Pierce is a big blow.
It is very big. I mean, you talked about the Packers run defense. I mentioned the Lions or the run offense, the Lions run offense. These teams are going to be able to smash mouth the Vikings. They lost Linval Joseph in the offseason and then Michael Pierce now. It's like two big bodies are gone. I know they both weren't on the same team, but still they won't be around. And so the Minnesota's defensive line, which I thought was the strength of this team, it's no longer the case, with Pierce gone. So they're going to be worse against the run. And it was kind of tight with the Packers. I had them winning the division by a hair. So I may go back to the Packers now, or if we get some positive news on Stafford, I think the Lions could sneak out this division. I think the Lions are kind of sneaky. Remember last year they started well. They almost won in Lambeau if it wasn't for that call. They almost beat the Chiefs at home. They beat the Eagles in Philly. They beat the Chargers at home. This team was very good last year until they suffered a slew of injuries. So I think if they stay healthy and the Stafford's back is fine, I think they could win the division. If not, I think it's going to be neck and neck with the Packers and the Vikings, and not having Pierce on the field. It's just going to be a big deal against the Packers, whom they play week 1. So I think Aaron Jones could maybe go off week 1. So keep that in mind if you're playing DraftKings. Speaking of the Packers, Devin Funch has opted out. This is one of the most curious decisions because he didn't play last year, and you could argue that he's never played based on his level of effort. Now he won't be playing this year. So what do you think about this? And do you think this affects the Packers at all?
I don't know if this is going to affect the Packers that much. I think this just goes to show, like, what were you thinking making Devin Funchess your only offseason acquisition at receiver? It was a questionable decision to begin with, and now they're already without him. And, he had injury issues in the past. Like, he was hurt all of last year except the first game. He had some potential, but, he'd mostly been a disappointment since being a second-round pick. He was a fine possession guy, but not a guy that you necessarily want starting on a winning team. So, I think they have Alan Lazard, who probably gets a big stock up in fantasy because he's the clear-cut number 2 receiver there now. I know he was on your sleepers list pretty much all this offseason, and I can only imagine that he's going to go further up, and his ADP might rise a bit, but not crazy. But Funch is I guess it makes sense for him because his contract will toll and he can come back to the Packers next year. But it was just one of those, I saw him opt out and I was like, oh yeah, that figures. Like the one guy the Packers added he's not going to play. So, but again, I don't think this is such a massive impact or anything because I think that they can go out on the free agent market and add another veteran guy if they really want someone else in the receiving core. I know these players aren't similar, but like Taylor Gabriel and Chris Hogan are still out there. Demaryius Thomas is out there. Like, if he's healthy, he could probably be the same, if not better than Funchess. I know they're veterans, but Packers are trying to win now. So maybe they'll add someone. Maybe they'll take a flyer on Josh Gordon or something too. I don't know. But Funchess doesn't impact them that much other than they might need another receiver who, has some potential ability to start.
Yeah, I think this is a bigger disaster for Devin Funchess than the Packers. I mean, the Packers receiving core is already a disaster, like with Funchess. And I as you said, I loved Alan Lazard as a sleeper, and I hope his ADP doesn't rise that much because I thought he was a steal. I figured he was going to be the number 2 over Funchess. I was never a big fan of Funchess. When he was drafted out of Michigan, I thought he should have moved to tight end because he can't separate. So I thought maybe he should gain some weight and then be an H-back of sorts, some sort of tight end. But yeah, this is going to really hurt his career. It's like, how can any team trust him? Like, he didn't play at all last year. Now he's not going to play this year for some reason. So, if I'm the Packers, I'd probably just draft some receivers or sign some receivers in free agency and just move on from him. And I don't know if he's going to see another team. So it's going to be tough for him, but the Packers, I don't think this affects him one bit. Now, if Lazard or Devontae Adams opts out, then they're suddenly in trouble because they're going to be down 2 receivers. But right now, I really don't think this affects the Packers. And I saw this trending on Twitter, and like people were like, "Oh my God, the Packers are toast without Funchess." I'm like, have you ever seen Funchess play? Like, It's just he's terrible. So I don't see why this would affect the Packers. There's one other opt out, or I guess you could talk about like Star Lotulelei with the Bills, another heavier guy. I don't think he was very impactful at all. Actually might help the Bills that he doesn't count against their cap this year. So the other guy I thought was significant, but at first I thought was significant, then wasn't, was Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, the doctor guard on the Chiefs. He opted out, and then the Chiefs signed Kelechi Osemele. So what do you think about that move and then the signing?
I thought that was a good move by the Chiefs to rebolster that offensive line, because I was concerned at first because Laurent Duvernay-Tardif is solid, and for him opting out makes sense because I think he's working as a doctor in Canada or as an orderly. I think he's working in a doctor's office or hospital of some sort. So he's probably had more exposure to the virus and everything, and he's a bigger dude. So I think it makes sense for him to opt out. But anytime you're talking about an offensive line losing a talented player and not having a ton of depth, because the Chiefs don't have a ton of interior line depth. I think they started some guy named Ryan Hunter, maybe not last year, maybe the year before. No, he's still on the team. He might have been the next guy up, and he was tossed around like a rag doll. Osemele is a proven guy, can kind of play anywhere on the offensive line. At this point, his career is significantly better at guard than he would be at tackle, but if you need a tackle in a pinch, he can help out. So I think signing him on a cheap short-term deal to protect Patrick Mahomes and, try to get the Chiefs back to the Super Bowl was a no-brainer for them. I think they did a good job. I personally would have preferred Larry Warford, but evidently he has also opted out of the season. So I will miss talking about how much I want a team to sign Larry Warford. But until 2021, then I'll bring him back up all the time.
Right. What I heard was Laurent Duvernay-Tardif was actually going to be working medically right now. So, you got to commend him for that. That's pretty cool. And then the Osemele signing was, I thought, great. I mean, Osemele used to be one of the better guards in the NFL. He's had injury concerns over the past couple of years, so his play has declined when he's been on the field, but he's been hurt. So if he can get healthy, if he can stay on the field, I think he can be a big boon for the Chiefs. I don't see him being better than Duvernay-Tardif, but he could, if he's like 80% or 85% of what Duvernay-Tardif was. I think that's a big deal because the Chiefs play in a division with the Broncos. The Broncos are, I guess you can argue the Raiders, but the Broncos probably the second best team in the division, or at least the third. And then you have the Chargers, who have a great pass rush with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. So it's important to keep Patrick Mahomes healthy. And when Duvernay-Tardif kind of opted out, I was like, oh man, if the Chiefs suffer another injury to the offensive line, I'm not going to like them when they play the Broncos. It's going to be pretty tough. But now it seems like they're safe with Osemele, assuming Osemele is not going to be that hurt.